Captain Jake Morrison watched through the big window of his ship. The last human ship was leaving the giant space station. After 300 years, humans were finally going home for good. Jake remembered the day everything changed. It was 20 years ago now. Ambassador Lisa Carter had walked into the big meeting room where all the alien leaders sat. The room was huge and round. Hundreds of different alien species filled the seats. They all looked down at the small human section. Lisa had stood up slowly. Her voice was calm but firm. "The human race is leaving the Galactic Council," she said. "We quit." The alien leaders laughed. The tall blue Zephyrians made clicking sounds with their mouths. The gray Nexari just stared with their big black eyes. The big warrior race called the Chromac banged their fists on their desks. "You cannot survive without us," said the Zephyrian leader. His voice sounded like wind through metal pipes. "Humans are too young, too stupid. You need our guidance." Lisa shook her head. "For 3 centuries we have helped you. We fixed your machines when they broke. We fought your wars when pirates attacked your trade ships. We grew food on planets you said could not grow anything. And what did you give us in return?" She looked around the room. "You gave us the smallest voice in your council. You ignored our ideas. You called us primitive when we solved problems you could not solve. You used us and threw us away." The Nexari leader spoke next. His voice was cold and electronic. "Human emotions make you unreliable. Your methods are chaotic. Order must be maintained." "Our chaos saved your ordered worlds many times," Lisa replied, "but you never wanted to admit it." Jake had been there that day. He was just a young officer then, standing guard behind Lisa. He watched as she placed a small device on the podium. It was a data chip containing humanity's resignation from every galactic organization. "This contains our withdrawal from all treaties, trade agreements, and military partnerships," Lisa announced. "All human citizens will return to human space. Within 1 year, all human businesses will close their alien operations. All human military units will return home." The Chromac general stood up. He was 8 feet tall with thick gray skin. "You cannot abandon your duties," he growled. "The Outer Rim needs patrol ships. Pirates will destroy everything." "Then you patrol it," Lisa said simply. "You have your own ships. Use them." "Our ships cannot fly through asteroid fields like yours can," the general admitted. "Our pilots are too careful. They follow rules. Humans take crazy risks." Lisa smiled for the first time that day. "Yes, we do. And those crazy risks saved your cargo ships thousands of times, but you never thanked us for it." She picked up her papers. "We are done being the galaxy's janitors. We are done being your attack dogs. We are done fixing problems you create and cannot solve. Find someone else to do your dirty work." The room exploded in angry voices. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. Some threatened war, others offered better deals. A few begged. Lisa walked, out without looking back. Dr. Nathan Cross remembered that day too. He was now in charge of Earth's isolation protocol. His job was to make sure no human ever had to serve aliens again. He stood in front of a group of young cadets at the Mars Military Academy. Behind him, a big screen showed pictures of human colonies scattered across 47 star systems. "Why?" "Did we leave?" asked a young woman named Kelly Price. Nathan sighed. "Because they used us," he said. "For 300 years, we were their fix-it crew. When their life support systems broke down, they called humans. When their food crops failed, they called humans. When pirates attacked their trade routes, they sent human soldiers to die." He clicked to the next picture. It showed a human engineer working inside a massive alien machine. "This is Sam Wilson. He spent 30 years keeping Zephyrian power plants running. He invented new ways to make their old machines work better. Did they give him credit? No. They said his methods were too primitive to understand." Another picture showed human farmers on an alien world. "These are the Garcia family. They turned a dead planet into a garden world that fed 10 million aliens. Did the aliens thank them? No. They said human farming was too messy and unscientific." The young cadet raised her hand again. "But did not we get something from being in the council?" Nathan laughed. but it was not a happy sound. We got to sit in the smallest section of their big meeting room. We got 1 vote out of 400. When we proposed new ideas, they ignored us. When we complained about unfair treatment, they told us to be patient. He walked to another picture. This one showed human soldiers fighting alongside alien forces. These humans died protecting alien colonies from pirate attacks. Thousands of them. The aliens built monuments to their own heroes. Human graves got small plaques that no one ever visits. Commander Paul Jenkins was stationed at the border of human space. His job was to watch the last humans come home and make sure no aliens followed them. His sensors showed the final human transport ship crossing into the Sol defense zone. Behind it, the galaxy continued as if nothing had changed. Alien ships moved along their trade routes. Alien stations broadcasted their news and entertainment, but Paul knew the truth. He had access to intelligence reports from across the galaxy. Already, small problems were starting. A Zephyrian mining station had to shut down because its recycling system broke and no human engineers were there to fix it. A Nexari research facility could not figure out why their computers kept crashing without human IT specialists. The aliens did not see it yet. They thought humans were easily replaced. They thought any species could do what humans did. They were wrong. Paul's communication officer, a young man named Bobby Chen, looked up from his console. "Sir, we are receiving more requests from alien governments. They want to hire human consultants." Paul shook his head. "Send the standard reply. Humanity is no longer available for consultation. All business relationships are terminated." "But, sir," Bobby said, "some of these requests are marked as emergencies." "Not our emergencies anymore," Paul replied. He looked out at the stars where human ships were finally coming home. "Let them figure it out themselves. They said they did not need us. Now they can prove it." On Earth, President Amanda Foster signed the final documents that completed humanity's withdrawal from galactic society. Every human citizen was now safely within the 47 systems that made up human space. Every human business had closed its alien operations. Every human soldier had come home. She walked to her office window and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, the aliens were discovering what life was like without humans to solve their problems. Amanda wondered how long it would take them to realize their mistake. She hoped it would not be too late when they finally understood the truth. Humans had not been the junior partners in galactic civilization. They had been its foundation. And now that foundation was gone, the galaxy would learn to miss them soon enough. 5 years had passed since the last human ship left alien space. Maya Brooks was one of the few humans who stayed behind. She worked in secret on the Zephyrian homeworld, hiding her identity with fake papers and a face mask that made her look like a pale Zephyrian. Maya worked as a maintenance engineer in the city's main power plant. Every day she watched the Zephyrian workers struggle with machines that humans had maintained for decades. The aliens followed their instruction manuals perfectly, but they could not think outside the rules. Yesterday, the main fusion reactor started making a strange noise. The Zephyrian chief engineer, a tall blue alien named Kextal, read through his manual for hours. The book said nothing about this particular sound. "The manual does not cover this problem," Kextal announced to his team. "We must shut down the reactor and wait for replacement parts from the manufacturer." Maya wanted to speak up. She knew that sound. It meant one of the magnetic containment coils was slightly loose. A human engineer could fix it in 20 minutes with some basic tools, but if she revealed she was human, they would arrest her or worse. So she watched as they shut down the reactor. Half the city lost power for 3 days while they waited for new parts that cost 1,000,000 credits. When the parts arrived, they were the wrong size. Maya could have fixed the original problem with a 50-credit toolkit. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Alex Turner sat in a hidden monitoring station built inside an old asteroid. His job was to listen to alien communications and report back to Earth Command. The messages he intercepted grew more desperate each day. The Nexari Collective, the galaxy's most advanced computer-based civilization, was falling apart. "Primary defense network experiencing cascade failures," read one message. "AI systems not responding to standard repair protocols," Request immediate technical assistance. Alex knew why their systems were failing. The Nexari had built their entire civilization around artificial intelligence, but they never understood how the AI actually worked. Human programmers had spent decades writing patches and fixes that kept the Nexari computers running. The aliens thought it was all automatic. Now, without human programmers to maintain the code, the AI systems were breaking down one by one. The Nexari tried to fix them by following their programming manuals, but the manuals only covered simple problems. Another message came through Alex's speakers. This one was marked as top secret. Food production AI offline in Sector 7. Agricultural AI offline in Sector 12. Transportation AI offline in Sector 15. Pattern suggests systematic failure rather than sabotage. Cause unknown. Alex almost laughed. The cause was not unknown. The cause was that humans were no longer there to babysit their precious AI systems. Human programmers had an intuitive understanding of how computers thought. They could spot problems that the Nexari's rigid diagnostic tools missed completely. He recorded the messages and sent them back to Earth through a hidden communication relay. Intelligence Command would want to know how fast the Nexari were falling apart. On the industrial world of Kepler 442b, Linda Hayes watched the Chromac struggle with their factories. The Chromac were the galaxy's warriors, but they also ran some of its biggest manufacturing operations. Their factories produced weapons, ships, and equipment for dozens of other species. Linda had managed to get a job as a productivity consultant by pretending to be from a minor alien species that looked similar to humans. She wore a fake skin suit and contact lenses to hide her human features. The Chromac factory supervisor, a massive alien named Gorth, stood in front of a production line that had been running at half speed for months. Production down 35% since the humans left, he growled to his assistant. But humans were only 12% of workforce. Numbers do not make sense. Linda knew exactly why the numbers did not make sense. Humans had not just worked on the production line, they had redesigned the entire workflow to be more efficient. They had spotted bottlenecks that the Chromac missed. They had suggested improvements. That doubled productivity. More importantly, humans had trained the Chromac workers in problem-solving techniques. When a machine broke down, a human worker could usually figure out a temporary fix while waiting for repairs. Chromac workers just followed their procedures and shut everything down. Maybe we should hire consultants from other species, suggested the assistant. Gorth shook his massive head. Other species not good at this type of work. Zephyrians too slow. Nexari only understand computers. Telkari only good at art and music. Humans were only ones who understood how to make things work better. He stared at the slow-moving production line. But humans all gone now. Must find other solution. Linda wanted to tell him that the solution was simple. Admit that humans had been valuable partners instead of expendable workers. Ask them to come back as equals instead of servants. But she knew Gorth would never accept that. Chromac pride was too strong. In the lawless Outer Rim, pirate attacks were increasing every month. Captain Ray Martinez commanded a small human observation post that monitored deep space communications. What she heard worried her. Convoy 7 Alpha destroyed an asteroid field delta, came a panicked transmission from a Talkari merchant ship. Pirates used small fighters to attack from multiple directions. Our escort ships could not respond fast enough. Ray shook her head. She had seen this before. The alien military commanders were too rigid in their thinking. They followed standard formation patterns that worked well against other organized militaries but were useless against creative pirates. Human tactical officers had developed flexible response strategies specifically for pirate attacks. They trained alien crews to split up, use asteroid cover, and think like criminals instead of soldiers. It worked brilliantly for 2 centuries. But the alien commanders had never really understood the strategies. They just followed the human-written playbooks. When humans left, they threw away the playbooks and went back to their old methods. Another transmission came through. This is Admiral Zekthor of the Nexari Defense Fleet. We have lost contact with Patrol Groups 3, 7, and 12. Last reports indicated pirate activity in all 3 sectors. Ray pulled up her star charts. Those 3 patrol groups were covering trade routes that human strategists had identified as vulnerable. The old human patrol patterns would have prevented these attacks, but the aliens had abandoned those patterns as too unpredictable. On the agricultural world of New Eden, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched as crop yields dropped across the planet. Elena was officially listed as a Talkari researcher, thanks to surgical modifications that made her look like the artistic alien species. She worked at the planet's main agricultural research station. The station's director, a pompous Nexari named Vexkun, stood before a wall of monitors showing failed harvests across 12 different worlds. Crop failures increasing at rate of 15% per quarter, Vexkun announced to his staff. Analysis indicates multiple contributing factors, but primary cause remains unknown. Elena knew the primary cause. It was the absence of human, agricultural specialists who had spent centuries learning how to farm alien worlds. Each planet required different techniques, different crop rotations, different soil treatments. The manuals covered the basics, but real farming required intuition and experience. Human farmers had developed special methods for each world. On planets with metal-rich soil, they used specific bacteria to neutralize toxins. On worlds with unstable weather, they planted mixed crops that could survive unexpected climate changes. On planets with alien insects, they used natural predators instead of harmful chemicals. The aliens had detailed records of what the humans did, but they did not understand why they did it. So when problems arose, they followed the manuals instead of adapting to new situations. Perhaps we should increase use of chemical fertilizers, suggested one of the Nexari researchers. Human records indicate they avoided chemical fertilizers on worlds with high groundwater flow, Elena said carefully. She had to be careful not to show too much knowledge about human methods. Vexkun waved dismissively. Human methods were primitive and unscientific. Chemicals are more reliable. Elena said nothing more. She knew that using chemical fertilizers on these particular worlds would poison the groundwater within a year. But if she argued too strongly, they might become suspicious of her knowledge. She watched as they approved the use of chemicals that would destroy the soil for decades. Another world would become uninhabitable because the aliens were too proud to admit that human, primitive methods actually worked better than their scientific approaches. Back on Earth, intelligence reports from hidden observers painted a picture of accelerating problems throughout the galaxy. Dr. Sophie Clark analyzed the data from her laboratory on Mars. The patterns were clear. Infrastructure failures were increasing exponentially. Economic productivity was dropping. Military effectiveness against pirates and raiders was declining rapidly. Food production was failing on world after world. But the most telling sign was in the communication networks. The galactic internet, maintained by human specialists for over 2 centuries, was beginning to fragment. Alien technicians could keep the individual nodes running, but they did not understand the complex routing algorithms that kept data flowing smoothly between star systems. 10 years after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone had imagined. Admiral Richard Stone sat in his office on Earth, reading intelligence reports that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. The first report came from the Talkari systems. The artistic aliens had been forced to abandon 3 entire star systems because their terraforming projects had collapsed. Without human environmental engineers, they could not maintain the delicate balance needed to keep their artificial ecosystems stable. Talkari refugee ships approaching neutral space, the report stated. Approximately 2 million civilians fleeing environmental collapse on homeworlds, requesting emergency sanctuary. Richard remembered when the Talkari had called humans destructive and environmentally reckless. Now their beautiful garden worlds were turning into poisoned wastelands because they had never learned how to maintain what humans had built for them. The second report was even worse. The Nexari Collective's main data hub had suffered a complete system failure. The aliens who prided themselves on their computer mastery had lost control of their own technology. Primary AI core experiencing recursive logic failures, the report explained. Backup systems unable to compensate. Estimated data loss, 47 petabytes. Communication with outer colonies suspended indefinitely. Richard shook his head. Human programmers had warned the Nexari about this exact problem 15 years ago. The AI systems were becoming too complex for their simple diagnostic tools. They needed human programmers who could think creatively about computer problems. The Nexari had ignored the warnings. They said human programming methods were too chaotic and unpredictable. Now their chaos-free systems were destroying themselves. On Earth's moon, President Amanda Foster held an emergency meeting with the Isolation Council. The holographic displays around the conference table showed the scope of the galactic crisis. Trade routes are collapsing across the outer rim, reported Intelligence Director Carlos Mitchell. Pirate attacks have increased by 400%. The aliens cannot protect their own shipping lanes. What about their military response? Amanda asked. Carlos laughed bitterly. They are using the same rigid tactics they used 300 years ago. Formation flying, predictable patrol routes, standard engagement procedures. The pirates are running circles around them. He clicked to the next display. The Chromac Empire just suffered its worst military defeat in 1,000 years. A group of pirates with stolen cargo ships destroyed an entire battle fleet. Amanda stared at the screen. How is that possible? The pirates used human guerrilla tactics, Carlos explained. Hit-and-run attacks, false retreats using asteroid fields for cover. Basic stuff that human military advisors taught everyone centuries ago. But the Chromac forgot how to think like humans after we left. On the screen, a video showed Chromac warships flying in perfect formation, while pirate fighters darted between them like angry insects. The massive alien warships could not target the small, fast-moving attackers. Their weapons were designed for fighting other big ships, not swarms of fighters. The Chromac general tried to follow standard fleet engagement protocols, Carlos continued. But pirates do not follow protocols. They do whatever works, just like humans used to do. Engineering Director Sophie Clark spoke up from her seat at the table. The infrastructure failures are accelerating beyond our worst predictions, she said. The galactic power grid lost another 3 major nodes this month. Without human technicians, they cannot maintain the quantum entanglement networks that keep everything connected. She brought up another display showing the galactic communication system. Red zones marked areas where communication had been completely cut off. Look at this. Entire sectors are going dark. The aliens never learned how to maintain the networks that humans built for them. What about food production? Amanda asked. Sophie's face was grim. Catastrophic. 17 agricultural worlds have reported total crop failure. The aliens are trying to use chemical solutions for problems that require biological understanding. They are poisoning their own soil. She clicked through. Images of dying farmland on worlds that had once been green and fertile. Human agricultural specialists knew how to work with alien ecosystems. They understood that each world needed different approaches. The aliens just follow their instruction manuals, even when the manuals do not work. Back in alien space, Maya, Brooks continued her secret work on the Zephyrian homeworld. The situation there was becoming desperate. Power outages were now happening daily. The transportation system was breaking down. Even the air recycling systems were starting to fail. Maya worked in the central maintenance facility, watching Zephyrian engineers struggle with problems that would have taken humans minutes to solve. Today, they were trying to fix the city's water purification system. The filtration units are not responding to standard commands, announced the chief engineer. According to the manual, we should replace all the filter cores and restart the system. Maya knew that would be a waste of time and money. The real problem was a software glitch in the control system. A human technician could patch it in 10 minutes, but the Zephyrians only knew how to follow their repair manuals. That will cost 8 million credits and take 2 weeks, protested one of the junior engineers. The manual is clear, the chief engineer replied. We follow standard procedures. Maya watched as they ordered replacement parts that would not fix the real problem. In 2 weeks, when the new parts failed to work, they would order more parts. Eventually, they would accidentally fix the software glitch while installing their 15th set of replacement components. But by then, the repair would have cost 50 million credits and taken 3 months. This same scene was playing out across the galaxy. Aliens following their manuals instead of thinking creatively about problems, spending enormous amounts of money and time on solutions that did not work. Meanwhile, Captain Alex Turner intercepted increasingly desperate communications from the Nexari military command. Their defensive systems were collapsing faster than they could repair them. Border Station Alpha 7 reports complete sensor failure, came one transmission. Unable to detect incoming threats, requesting immediate technical support. Border Station Alpha 12 reports weapon system malfunction, came another. Primary batteries offline, secondary batteries firing at reduced power, enemy raiders detected in nearby systems. Alex pulled up his intelligence files on Nexari military technology. Everything they used had been originally designed by humans or extensively modified by human engineers. The aliens had never understood how their own weapons worked. Human engineers had built redundancy into every system. If one component failed, two backup systems would automatically take over. If the backups failed, there were manual override, procedures that could keep everything running. But the aliens had never learned about the backup systems. They did not know the override procedures. When something broke, they just waited for replacement parts instead of using the emergency systems that humans had built into every design. On the industrial world of Kepler 442b, Linda Hayes watched as the Chromac factories ground to a halt. Production had dropped by 70% in just 6 months. The remaining workers were demoralized and confused. "We follow same procedures as always," complained Supervisor Gorth to his assistant. "But productivity keeps falling. Quality keeps getting worse. Nothing works like it used to work." Linda knew why. The procedures they were following had been written by humans. But procedures were just words on paper. The real knowledge was in understanding why those procedures worked and how to adapt them to new situations. When a machine broke down differently than expected, human workers had improvised solutions. When supply shortages forced changes in materials, human engineers had redesigned processes on the fly. When new efficiency opportunities appeared, human managers had rewritten the procedures to take advantage of them. The Chromac just followed the old procedures no matter what happened. When the procedures did not work, they did not know what to do except follow them harder. Gorth stared at a production line that had been stopped for 6 hours because of a minor jam in the conveyor system. "Human workers would have fixed this in 10 minutes, he admitted reluctantly. "Maybe we should contact human governments," suggested his assistant. "Ask for technical consultants." Gorth's expression hardened. "Chromac do not beg for help," he growled. "We will solve this ourselves." But Linda could see the doubt in his eyes. Deep down, he was beginning to understand that some problems could not be solved with warrior pride and stubborn determination. Across the galaxy, the same realization was slowly dawning on other species. The Zephyrians were discovering that their rigid adherence to rules and procedures was useless when the rules did not cover unexpected situations. The Nexari were learning that their logical approach to problems failed when the problems required creative solutions. The Talkari were finding out that artistic sensitivity was not enough to maintain complex technology. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, still disguised as a Talkari researcher, watched as another agricultural world declared a food emergency. The planet's crop yields had dropped by 60% in 2 years. Millions of people were facing starvation. 15 years after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy was dying. Chancellor Vextai of the Zephyrian Republic stood in his private office, looking out at the capital city below. Half the buildings were dark. Power outages had become so common that most businesses only operated a few hours each day. His aide, a younger Zephyrian named Kilvor, entered with a data pad. "Sir, the engineering report you requested." Vextai took the pad and read the summary. It was worse than he had feared. Life support failure on 17 orbital stations, power grid collapse in 43 sectors, transportation system down to 30% capacity. He looked up at his aide. "How long can we continue?" Kilvor hesitated. "According to our best estimates, complete infrastructure collapse within 2 years. Maybe less." Vextai set down the pad and walked to his communication console. For months he had been debating this decision. His pride as a Zephyrian leader warred with his duty to save his people. Pride lost. He activated the console and began recording a message. The recipient address was marked as Earth Diplomatic Service, Priority Channel. "This is Chancellor Vextai of the Zephyrian Republic," he began. "We formally request technical consultation on critical infrastructure maintenance. We are prepared to offer significant compensation for human engineering expertise." He paused, struggling with the words. "We acknowledge that our previous assessment of human capabilities was incomplete. We would welcome the opportunity to discuss mutually beneficial arrangements." After sending the message, Vextai slumped in his chair. He had just done something no Zephyrian leader had done in 1,000 years. He had asked another species for help. On Earth, Ambassador Tony Parker received the message at the Mars diplomatic station. Tony had been humanity's former liaison to the Talkari before the withdrawal. Now he worked in the Alien Communications Monitoring Division. The Zephyrian message was one of dozens that arrived daily. Every alien government was sending similar requests. They all had the same theme: critical systems failing, need immediate human assistance, willing to pay enormous sums for help. Tony forwarded the message to Earth Command with his standard note. Another plea for technical assistance. Recommend standard rejection response. But privately, Tony was troubled by what he was seeing in the intelligence reports. The galaxy was not just experiencing technical difficulties, it was undergoing complete civilizational collapse. The Talkari, Tony's former diplomatic partners, were suffering especially badly. Their artistic culture had always depended on stable infrastructure to support their creative endeavors. Now their worlds were becoming uninhabitable wastelands. Tony pulled up the latest report from Talkari space. 3 more colonies had been evacuated due to environmental collapse. Millions of Talkari refugees were crowding into the few remaining stable worlds. Food shortages were becoming critical. He remembered Ambassador Selthera, the Talkari diplomat he had worked with for 20 years. She had called humans culturally primitive during the final council session before the withdrawal. She had voted to reduce human representation in galactic organizations. Now her people were dying because they could not maintain the environmental systems that humans had designed for them. Captain Lisa Murphy commanded the stealth ship UES Shadow 1 of several human vessels that secretly monitored conditions throughout the galaxy. Her current mission was reconnaissance in the former Nexari core worlds. What she found shocked even her experienced crew. "Captain," reported her sensor officer, a young woman named Janet Kim, "I am reading massive population movements throughout this sector. Refugee convoys, evacuation fleets, emergency shelter construction on dozens of worlds." Lisa looked at the tactical display. Red dots marked areas of crisis throughout what had once been the most stable region of the galaxy. "What is the cause?" "Communication network failures, sir," Janet replied. "The Nexari built their entire civilization around AI-controlled systems. Without the network to coordinate everything, their society is falling apart." Lisa nodded grimly. She had seen similar reports from other regions. The Nexari had created a perfectly logical, efficiently organized civilization. Every citizen had a specific role determined by AI analysis. Every resource was allocated according to mathematical optimization. Every decision was made by computer calculations. It was a beautiful system in theory. In practice, it only worked because human programmers had been maintaining the AI systems for centuries. The computers were not actually as smart as the Nexari believed. They were just following very complex programs written by human software engineers. When the humans left, they took their knowledge with them. The Nexari tried to maintain the AI systems using their own programmers, but they only understood the surface level of the code. They could fix simple bugs, but they could not handle major system failures. Now the AI systems were breaking down faster than they could be repaired. Without the computers to tell them what to do, the Nexari were paralyzed. Millions of them simply sat in their homes waiting for instructions that would never come. "Sir," Janet said quietly, I am reading life support failures on multiple stations. Estimated casualties in the hundreds of thousands. Lisa closed her eyes for a moment. Hundreds of thousands of Nexari were dying because they did not know how to maintain their own life support systems without computer guidance. On the industrial world of Kepler 442b, the situation was becoming desperate. Kevin Brown, a human agricultural specialist who had been working undercover for 5 years, watched as the last functional farms finally collapsed. The Chromac had been trying to maintain food production using pure chemical solutions. They pumped artificial fertilizers into the soil, used genetic modification to create supercrops, and deployed automated systems to handle all farming operations. Kevin had tried to warn them through intermediaries. Chemical farming would work for a few years, but it would eventually destroy the soil. The automated systems were breaking down because they could not adapt to unexpected conditions. The genetically modified crops were vulnerable to diseases that natural crops could resist. The Chromac had ignored all warnings. They believed their warrior mentality could conquer farming just like it conquered enemies in battle. They would force the land to produce food through sheer determination and superior technology. Now the soil on most farming worlds was so poisoned that nothing would grow. The automated systems had broken down and could not be repaired. The crops had been wiped out by a fungal disease that spread across 17 worlds in 6 months. Kevin stood in a field that had once produced enough grain to feed 1 million Chromac. Now it was a barren wasteland where even weeds could not survive. The chemical runoff had contaminated the groundwater. It would take decades to restore this land to productivity, if it could be restored at all. Supervisor Gorth approached Kevin's position. The massive Chromac looked smaller now, defeated by an enemy he could not fight with weapons. Human consultant, Gorth said quietly. Kevin had convinced the Chromac that he was a member of a minor alien species that looked similar to humans. How long before land produces food again? Kevin shook his head. With proper treatment, maybe 50 years. Without treatment, maybe never. Gorth stared at the dead soil. Other worlds, same condition? Most of them, Kevin confirmed. The chemical treatments destroyed the natural balance. You tried to force the land instead of working with it. Human farmers would not have made this mistake, Gorth admitted. Kevin was surprised by the alien's honesty. No, they would not have. Human farmers understood that soil is a living system. You cannot force living things. You have to work with them. Gorth was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question Kevin had been expecting. Are human governments accepting consultation requests? No, Kevin said. All human business relationships are terminated. That is their official policy. What about unofficial arrangements? Gorth asked. Kevin shrugged. I am just a consultant. I do not know about government policies. But Kevin did know. He had received orders from Earth Command just last week. Under no circumstances were any humans to provide direct assistance to alien governments. Humanity was committed to its isolation policy. However, individual humans working as private contractors were free to make their own decisions. If alien governments wanted to hire human expertise, they would have to do it through unofficial channels and pay premium prices. Meanwhile, the galactic military situation was becoming chaotic. Captain Ray Martinez monitored communications from her hidden observation post in the Outer Rim. The messages told a story of complete defensive collapse. Fleet Command, this is Admiral Kextor. Came a desperate transmission from the Zephyrian Navy. We have lost contact with Border Patrol Groups 1, 3, 5, and 7. Last reports indicated heavy pirate activity. Request permission to abandon outer defense perimeter. Ray shook her head. The Zephyrians were giving up territory that humans had helped them hold for 2 centuries. Without human tactical advisors, they could not maintain their defensive positions against creative pirate attacks. Another transmission followed from the Nexari Defense Force. Central Command emergency situation in Sector 12. Pirate forces using captured military equipment. Our standard countermeasures are ineffective. Casualties mounting rapidly. 20 years had passed since humanity left the galactic stage. The galaxy was dying and everyone knew it. President Amanda Foster stood in the Situation Room beneath the White House, surrounded by holographic displays showing the scope of the crisis. Casualty estimates now exceed 500 million, reported Intelligence Director Carlos Mitchell. Infrastructure collapse affecting over 2,000 worlds. Economic activity down 70% across all sectors. Amanda studied the red zones on the galactic map. More than half the galaxy was now marked as either uninhabitable or under emergency conditions. What about the communication networks? Fragmenting rapidly, replied Dr. Helen Wright, the architect of humanity's isolation protocol. Major sectors are completely cut off from each other. The galactic internet is essentially dead. Commander Steve Davis, representing the military, spoke up from his position at the tactical display. The defensive situation is even worse. Organized pirate fleets now control approximately 30% of former alien territory. They are using captured military equipment more effectively than the original owners. Amanda walked to the main display showing Earth and its 47 colony worlds. The human systems glowed with steady green lights, islands of stability in a galaxy consumed by chaos. Any change in the requests for assistance? She asked. Carlos nodded grimly. They are not even pretending to offer business contracts anymore. Yesterday we received direct pleas for help from the Zephyrian Chancellor, the Nexari Collective Council, and the Chromac War Assembly. All of them are offering complete territorial concessions in exchange for basic life support maintenance. They are offering to give us entire star systems just to keep their people alive, Dr. Wright added quietly. Amanda felt the weight of billions of lives pressing down on her. For 20 years, humanity had maintained its isolation while the aliens learned the consequences of their arrogance. But watching civilizations collapse was different from winning an argument about human worth. Ma'am, Commander Davis said, we have a more immediate problem. Our deep space monitoring stations are detecting something at the galaxy's edge. Something big. He activated a new display showing the outer rim of the galaxy. A dark mass was visible moving through space, consuming everything in its path. What is it? Amanda asked. We are not sure yet, Davis replied. But it is moving fast, and it is headed toward the galactic core. Our best estimate is that it will reach the first inhabited systems within 6 months. Amanda stared at the approaching threat. After 20 years of isolation, humanity was about to face a choice that would define their future role in the galaxy. They could continue to let the aliens handle their own problems, or they could intervene to save everyone, including themselves. On the hidden observation post in the Titan system, Captain Jim Collins received the alert signal that would change everything. His ship, the UES Defiance, had been reactivated after 15 years in storage. Along with it, the entire human deep space defense network came back online. Sir, reported his sensor officer, Lieutenant Danny Walsh. I am reading massive energy signatures at the galaxy's edge. Whatever it is bigger than anything in our databases. Jim pulled up the tactical display. The alien governments had been so focused on their internal collapse that they had completely neglected their outer defenses. Their early warning systems had failed months ago. Only Earth's sensor network was still functional. How long until it reaches inhabited space? Jim asked. At current speed, approximately 5 months, Danny replied. But sir, there is something else. I am detecting smaller formations breaking off from the main mass. They appear to be scout groups moving ahead of the primary force. Jim felt ice in his stomach. Humanity had maintained their isolation while the galaxy crumbled, but they had always known that external threats might force them back into galactic affairs. Now that threat was approaching faster than anyone had anticipated. He opened a secure channel to Earth Command. This is Captain Collins reporting Priority Alpha situation. We have confirmed external hostile contact approaching from Galactic Edge. Recommend immediate notification of all human defense forces. On Earth, the Global Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from all 47 human worlds gathered in person or by hologram to debate humanity's response to the crisis. The approaching force appears to be the Void Swarm, reported Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now director of Earth's Xenobiology Institute. We have theoretical knowledge of them from ancient galactic records, but they have not been seen in this region for over 10,000 years. The Void Swarm was every spacefaring civilization's nightmare. They were not a single species, but a collection of different alien races that consumed entire galaxies. They arrived, stripped every habitable world of resources and life, then moved on to the next galaxy. How effective would the current alien defenses be against this threat? Asked the representative from New Texas. Dr. Rodriguez shook her head. Completely ineffective. The Void Swarm adapts to any conventional military strategy within hours. They are specifically designed to overcome the kind of rigid, predictable tactics that the alien militaries use. What about unconventional tactics? Asked the representative from New Shanghai. That is the key question, Dr. Rodriguez replied. The Void Swarm has trouble adapting to creative, unpredictable strategies. They are designed to counter logical military thinking, not human-style chaos and improvisation. President Foster spoke from her position at the head of the table. So we are looking at a situation where humanity might be the only force capable of stopping this threat? Possibly, Dr. Rodriguez confirmed, but only if we can coordinate with the remaining alien military forces. Even human tactics will not work if we are facing the swarm alone. The debate that followed lasted for 18 hours. Some representatives argued for continued isolation. The aliens had made their choice 20 years ago. Let them face the consequences. Others argued for limited intervention. Provide enough assistance to stop the Void Swarm, then return to isolation. But a growing number argued for something more ambitious. The galaxy was dying anyway. The old system of alien dominance and human subservience was gone forever. This crisis provided an opportunity to rebuild galactic civilization on more equal terms. President Foster called for a preliminary vote. The results were closer than expected, but the interventionist position won by a narrow margin. The question now, Foster announced, is what terms we offer for our assistance. Ambassador Kate Wilson, humanity's former representative to the Galactic Council, had been brought out of retirement for this moment. She stood before the Global Council with a document that had taken 3 days to write. These are humanity's conditions for re-engagement with galactic civilization, Kate announced. First, full membership in any future galactic government with veto power over major decisions. Second, equal representation in all international organizations. Third, formal acknowledgement of human contributions to galactic civilization over the past 3 centuries. She continued reading from the document. Fourth, reparations for the economic losses suffered during our forced withdrawal. Fifth, guaranteed rights for human citizens on alien worlds. Sixth, joint control of all major infrastructure projects. The terms were harsh but fair. Humanity would help save the galaxy, but they would never again accept second-class status. Within hours of the Global Council's decision, the first human ships in 20 years crossed the border into alien space. Captain Collins led a small fleet to the Zephyrian homeworld, where Chancellor Vexitai waited in his damaged capital city. The meeting between Collins and Vexitai took place in the Chancellor's private office, with most of the city's power grid still offline. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls. Captain Collins, Vexitai began, I speak for the Zephyrian Republic when I say that we accept humanity's conditions for assistance. We acknowledge our errors in judgment regarding human capabilities. Collins nodded. The formal agreements will be negotiated later. Right now, we need to focus on the immediate threat. Our sensors indicate the Void Swarm will reach this system within 4 months. What do you need from us? Vexitai asked. Everything, Collins replied. Every ship, every weapon, every resource you can spare, but more importantly, we need your commanders to follow human tactical guidance without question. The swarm will destroy any force that uses predictable strategies. Vexitai hesitated. Even in their desperate situation, it was difficult for an alien leader to place his military forces under human command. Chancellor, Collins said quietly, your people are dying. Your civilization is collapsing. Your military tactics have failed against pirates and raiders. How do you think they will perform against the Void Swarm? Vextai closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, his decision was clear. You have operational command of all Zephyrian military forces. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human ships arrived at alien worlds to find desperate governments willing to accept almost any terms for assistance. The proud Nexari handed over control of their AI systems to human programmers. The warrior Chromac accepted human officers as their military advisors. The artistic Talkari begged human engineers to save their dying worlds.